Early in my career at Accenture, I was given the transition of a large program into operations. Nobody gave me a playbook or told me exactly how to do it. I was given full responsibility. Figure it out, make it work, just deliver. I had people around me that I could go to for advice, and I used them a lot. All of it was new to me, but the responsibility for the transition was all mine. And I still remember how uncomfortable I was in that project. And when I look back over the 30 years of my career, that project is one of the moments where I grew the most and the fastest. And that's what I want to talk about. Because as a leader, you're now on the exact other side of that decision. You decide who gets delegated what work. And most leaders that I know get this wrong in one of two ways. Some leaders protect their people. They give everyone work that they can comfortably do, the work that they're expected to do. Nothing too risky, nothing scary. And it feels kind of nice protecting the team. But that team, it doesn't grow. It slowly stalls. The good people, they get bored, and the really good ones, they leave for a more exciting environment. Other leaders do the exact opposite. They just keep piling on more work and more pressure until someone breaks. And it's almost never on purpose. It's just the work is got to get done, so I'm going to give it to my team. They just never learned where to draw the line. And underneath everything in this video is one belief that I hold very strongly. As a leader, your main job is not to deliver the results. And of course it is, but your job is also really to grow the people who deliver them. Get that right, and the results are going to follow straight from there. And they're going to be bigger and more than anything you could have delivered by yourself or with the team you started out with. So, 5 things today on growing your people without stalling them and without getting them into a burnout. First, think of one person on your team who's taking it easy today. The work gets done, there's no complaints, but you haven't seen them do anything new in the last 6 months or a year. Now think of someone else who's struggling. Deadlines are slipping and there's stress that you can see. Both of these people are stuck. They're just in very different places. And there's a very simple model that I've learned over the years and that I still use today. There's 3 zones. In the center is the comfort zone. And all the work there is familiar and it's easy and you know how to do it and you've done it before. You can do it again with your eyes closed. There's little stress there, but there's also no growth and no challenge. What many leaders miss, boring work isn't harmless. Work without any challenge year after year creates its own stress, and it can burn people out as easily as giving them too much work. People need to feel their skills are being put to good use, right? They need to be stretched. The stretch zone is the work that's challenging, but still doable. It's maybe a new project, a new technology, just more responsibility than you had last time. And that's where real learning happens. It's also where mistakes happen, and that's part of the deal of stretching people. You make room for acceptable mistakes and use them to learn. The panic zone, the last one, is work that's too much. It's too difficult, the stakes are maybe too high, there's a deadline that just can't be met, or a mistake would just cost too much. That's what gives people stress and anxiety. And if someone stays there for too long, they burn out. If someone on your team is in that panic zone, you need to act right away. You need to give them support, extra hands, more time, whatever it takes. Your job is to keep each person mostly in the stretch zone, in the middle. Not permanently, because the comfort zone has real function as well. It's where learning settles in and where people catch their breath. It just shouldn't become where someone spends all the time in their career. And an occasional visit to the panic zone, it's not a disaster either. It's actually a good thing at times. People learn where the limits are by touching them, by actually going there. But the panic zone is a place that you need to go and visit together. You never send someone in your team there alone. You need to give them a big, scary project, and then walking away isn't stretching, it's just dumping work. And I covered that leadership mistake at length in one of the previous videos on delegation. The second one changed how I look at overloaded teams. Burnout doesn't just come from the amount of work, and that's a big mistake that people make. At least, usually it doesn't. People can handle an enormous amount of work and they can actually be happy with it for a long time. But 2 things have to be true. The work has to mean something to them, and they feel that their work is seen and recognized. I've seen a lot of teams put in 50, 60 hours a week and be happy with it, enjoy it, because they cared about what they were doing and they knew that their work really mattered. And I've seen people burn out on a perfectly normal workload with work that drained them, that nobody ever noticed or thanked them for, no recognition, or that they had no control over. The hours were never the problem there. So before you stretch someone, check their energy first. Is this work that is actually meaningful to them? Do they feel seen, recognized, appreciated? Are they motivated and engaged? A stretch on top of engagement is growth. People that are in that zone of engagement are motivated, and you give them a stretch task, they're going to grow. They're going to love it. Stretch on top of low energy is just more grind, and it's probably going to push someone towards the panic zone so much faster than any other task ever would. If someone on your team is flat, not engaged, don't give them a bigger challenge and hope that it wakes them up. It doesn't. Once in a while it works, but most of the time, no. First, figure out what's draining them, fix that first, and then go and stretch them. Motivation and engagement come before stretch. The third thing, it took me years to fully see. Every single person is different, of course, but it also changes over time. I worked with people who just kept asking for more and more work, more difficult work, new technologies, being thrown in the deep end of the pool. And that's where they came alive. That's what they really, really enjoyed. And I've worked with people who got stressed by just a small stretch on top of their existing work. And neither one is wrong. It's just how people are. And your job is to know where each person on your team is. The zones also move over time for the same person. I'll give you my own example. I thrive on change. I love new challenges, new work, new roles, new problems, and a bit of panic. The panic zone really gets me going. I love it there. But I've had years where my personal life needed all my attention. And one of those years, I met with my manager and I told him, this year, I'm just going to do my job and nothing else. That's it. There's not going to be any stretch work. I stayed in my comfort zone that year on purpose because I needed my energy somewhere else at home. That was the right choice at that time for me. A year later, everything was okay and I was ready to be stretched again. So check with each person and do it again every few months because the answer to the question changes, and stretch people in the direction of their strengths. An introverted architect who hates presenting, their stretch is probably a harder design problem, not a bigger podium or not getting them on stage more. Someone that has a natural pull towards people, an extrovert person, give them a small team to lead. The work should feel uncomfortable but not terrifying. Uncomfortable work, challenging work, that is growth. Terrified is panic. And watch your senior people. We often treat growth like it's a junior topic for junior people, but seniors get to stall too, and often more quietly. I've seen a team handle this really well. Their most senior engineer could fix anything, and fixing things had become his whole job. But that also meant that every escalation went to him, and he loved being the one who saved the day. But there was no stretch and no growth anymore. They moved him onto building the wider team, building up the wider team, and growing the rest of the people. But they protected a couple of hours every week for him to do hands-on fixing, the work that he loved. Then they recorded those sessions so the juniors could learn from how he did his work. Only the really hard problems still came to him. And he kept the part of the job that he enjoyed, lost the parts that were just repetitive or kept him small, and the whole team got stronger as a result. Fourth, the how to, because this is where good intentions often go sideways. When you hand somebody a stretch task, tell them it's a stretch. Tell them this is more than you've done before. I know that, and I'm going to give it to you anyway because I think you're ready to grow into it. That one sentence does so much for them. Now it's actually safe to struggle and it's safe to ask for help. Then stay close when they do the work. Watch how they're doing, but don't take over. When mistakes happen, and they will, just analyze them together without creating blame. What happens? What can we learn from this? And when they do deliver, celebrate. Make sure that the rest of the team sees it, and the next time add maybe another 10%. Make it a little bit more difficult or add some responsibility. Keep doing that and just watch what a year can do to someone's skills and their confidence. You might ask, why don't we just send people to training? There's an old model, it's about 30 years old, the 70-20-10 model, and it's held up really well over the years. Only about 10% of what we learn comes from formal training, courses, certifications, or books. 20% comes from other people, mentors, or peers, or coaches, or code reviews. 70% of the learning comes from doing the work, hands-on, making mistakes and trying again. It's how crafts were taught for centuries, an apprentice working next to a master. So a certificate is the start of learning, not the end. But training is pointless if it's not immediately put into practice. When someone on my team asks for training, first I sit down with them and I plan how and when they're going to actually apply that in their day job. Without that plan, whatever they learned is going to be gone in a month or so. And one more thing on the mechanics. A stretch task only works if you hand it over well. Be clear on the ownership of the different tasks, the boundaries, the checkpoints. That's a skill on its own, and I made a whole video on it earlier in this series on delegation. If handing work over is where it goes wrong for you, watch that video. Subscribe to the channel, and it's all going to be right there on the list. The last one, number 5, is new. A point that I wouldn't have made 2 years ago, and it's about AI. AI is changing how people grow, and most leaders haven't thought about it fully yet. Remember the 70%? Most of what we learn comes from doing the work, making the mistakes, and trying again. AI now offers to do exactly that bit for us. Claude can write the code, ChatGPT can write the analysis or a plan or a difficult email or create a presentation. At every level of your team, the hard part of the work, the part where that growth really lives, has now become almost optional because of AI. For your senior people, that means the comfort zone just got a lot more comfortable. The problem that used to force them to grow, AI now handles a good part of it. They ship faster, they deliver faster, and they learn less. And it doesn't feel like a problem because the output looks really good. For your juniors, it's worse. Real growth comes from the struggle, the mistakes, the hard work, being stuck, debugging your own mess, finding out why your solution breaks in production. If AI starts to take all of that away, you get people who can produce anything but analyze nothing. Fast forward a couple of years and you have a team with really impressive output, but no real experience or judgment skills, and nobody that's ready to be promoted. So protect the struggle, the hard work, making the mistakes, and be very deliberate about it. Let your juniors get stuck on purpose before they ask for AI for help. And not on everything, but on the real work that builds their experience and their judgment. Put a senior in every review and have the junior explain out loud why something is good or why it would break. And keep some of the stretch work human even when AI could do it faster. Yes, that costs you some speed today, but you trade more output now and giving up having a strong team in 3 years. That's a really bad trade. So give people the stretch that they really need. So we talked about 5 things. Keep each person mostly in their stretch zone. Check their energy before you give them the stretch work. Treat each person individually because the zones are personal and they change over time. Be deliberate about the stretch, name it, stay close, and continuously add another 10%. And finally, protect the struggle, especially now with AI. It all comes back to just the one belief that I gave you in the beginning. Your job as a leader is not just to deliver the results. Your job is to grow the people who deliver them. Imagine what that means in 12 months. If you spend the next year just delivering, you'll get your results, and next year you'll have the same team that you have today. And everything will still keep going to you. You will have the same challenges, the same issues, no different from today. If you spend the same 12 months growing your people, you'll have a team that delivers far more than you could ever have imagined. And your own capability grows with theirs. Because when your team grows, you have no choice but to grow as well. So this week, just do one thing. Pick one person in your team. Which zone are they in right now? Then either add a stretch if they're too comfortable or add support if they're in the panic zone. That's it. This is one video in a series that I'm making on the shift from being the person who does the work to early leadership to strategic leadership. If that's the shift that you're working on, subscribe and follow along for the rest of the videos.